This is Matt Meyer with the North Carolina Community College System Office. I am going to kick us off. You are jumping into the presentation called Reframing Latino Americans Academic Attainment in North Carolina. We thank you for being a part of this workshop today. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Claudia Farnandez from the North Carolina Community College System Office. Claudia, are you ready to take over?
I think so. So good morning, everyone. Again, if you have any technical difficulties, either audio or sound or video, please let us know if you have those in the chat so we can support you so you can hear the content of this presentation. Matt, thank you very much for the introduction. And again, thank you for the opportunity to have me here this morning and share some ideas on how we can support the Latino community in North Carolina. So before we start, I would like to know who are you and where are you, which community college are you representing? So can you please open the chat box and add there your name and the community college that you are representing, so we know who is joined this morning. I'm going to leave a few minutes for you to do. Okay, Gilda, welcome. Megan, Pitt Community College, Blue Ridge, and more Blue Ridge. Randolph, Michael, hi. Wilkes, excellent. Oh, Caldwell Community College. I live in Watauga County, so here I am, your neighbor. Mitchell, excellent. Okay, well, good. Now it's a small group, so I might change some of the dynamics of the presentation since we have a small group joined today. So welcome everybody. Again, I'm Claudia Farnandez, and I joined the system office only 4 months ago. So that means that I start my assignment here during social distancing. That means that most of my work has been done from home. And again, I just mentioned I live in Watauga County at the moment, and I haven't met my my coworkers just yet, face to face. So I'm sharing that because you know, these times are different, and they are different in all aspects of our life. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how those changes in what we're living today are in some way, in many ways actually, affecting our Latino students. So before I joined the system office, and that's why I live here in Watauga County. I was the executive director for distance learning programs and summer programs at Appalachian State University. So that's why I'm still here. I spent there about 4 years working with distance learning students, which for the university level are mainly adult students. Then before that, I grew up at the community college. I spent 17 years of my career at Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte. And and there, most of my time at Central Piedmont was with the college and career readiness program. So what's interesting about going through my years serving the college is that I start at CCR or adult education, and I'm back to adult education after several years. So that's a little bit about me. I also want to share some of the background I have working with Latino families. And it's not only by working at the community college, but also working at a community-based organization that I co-found in Mecklenburg County about 20 years ago. I mean, time passed by fast. And this community-based organization basically focused on promoting academic attainment for Latino students. And the way we did that was really working with the family. We're going to talk about why it's so important and so essential to work with the family when we are thinking about recruiting Latinos. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm going to, I'm supposed to move this. already. Again, the title of my presentation is Reframing Latino America's Academic Attainment in North Carolina. So what do we mean about that? What do I mean when I talk about reframing Latino Americans' academic attainment in North Carolina? Dr. Tippett and some of my colleagues at the community college earlier talk about a lot about data. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the data they touched, and hopefully by the end of this presentation, you will have some strategies, some ideas for you to consider to apply in your own communities. Now, every community is different. You know your community better than we do here at the state office because you are there. And you really know what are the forces that are making changes at your specific counties and at your specific zip codes. So what is reframing? What are we talking about reframing? Why is that in this idea of I start thinking about reframing enrollment? So I'm gonna ask you a question here for you to share with me. What is your goal to recruiting Latinos? And I'm gonna give you a few minutes to discuss that. And Matt, can we do this now? Can we break out in small groups? So the participants have a moment to discuss among them, what is your goal to recruiting Latinos at your community college? Can we try?
Yeah, I'm going to move people into 3 rooms. There is system office person in each room. And for example, real quick, Claudia, you're in room 1. Daniel, you'll be in room 2. Gilda, you'll be in room 3. If you guys can help facilitate that, then we will bring you back to the main room in 5 minutes.
Yes, sounds great. Thank you. And so you know, when you break up into groups, you cannot see the question or this screen anymore. So again, what I would like you to do is to talk about what is your goal when you are thinking about recruiting Latinos for your community colleges. Excellent. So anyone wants to share with the whole group some of those conversations that you have in the small groups? I can start with my group. We talk about barriers, right? We talk about what are the challenges the Latino community have, especially K through 12, and how, when they move from K to 12 and reach to the community college, how can we assist this community to succeed, to attain a degree, post-secondary credentials. So that was some of the comments in my group. You know, and I emphasize that a lot of times, some of the strategies that might work in Caldwell or in every county might not work in Union County. So that let's keep that in mind. Somebody else would like to share what their group discussion was?
Yeah, I'll share what our group was. Our group had several comments stemming with a variety of saying that they would like to make sure that their college represents, or that they're doing all they can to recruit the Latino population in their community so that they have a diverse community college family. And others is that the goal was, it was actually personal as well, but that is to say that they wanted to extend, their goal was to extend the family value of the Latinos from which they're coming from, and certainly across Latino cultures, was the idea that education is important and you do whatever it takes. And so the goal was to say we'd like to see more Hispanic faces as professionals. And then also the idea of equity, that it's an equity issue, that we need to make sure that we're doing, taking this extra effort. The goal is to take the extra effort needed to make sure that there is equity across the board. And for example, equity would be making sure that you transition a lot of your ESL students that are coming from the CCR programs, into post-secondary transition. And then any of my group members, if you want to add or edit any of these notes, feel free to do so.
Thanks, Gilda. These are very valuable conversations. And and I appreciate the input. So really, again, with this presentation, what I think about reframing is to think about your institutions and do not think about recruiting Latinos just to increase enrollments, right? But instead, thinking about bringing Latinos to your community college as an essential function dedicated to promote academic attainment among this population, right? And we need this for the immense recovery efforts that will be required to regenerate our economy after COVID-19 or, post-pandemic. So let's continue. I'm going to start by sharing some big picture data, and if you participate in the workshop or the opening session earlier, you have already heard some of this. So I'm going to go quickly, but I'm going to take some points that are really relevant to the work that you do with these students. So again, in the national level, Hispanics makes up more than half of the U.S. population growth from 2010 to 2019. 52% of that growth was in the Latino community. That statistic right there, it also shows how the growth was from 2010 to 2019 here in North Carolina. That growth of Hispanics in the country happens, most of that here in the South. Hispanics make up more than half of the total U.S. population growth from 2010 to 2019, and that was also here in North Carolina. The South account for nearly half of the Latino population growth since 2010. Granted, most Latinos live in the West Coast, in border states, but having this population here in North Carolina that has grown in this way in the last 30 years is something that we never experienced before here in North Carolina. And that ensures that it's changing everything, that every part of society here in our state. And another thing that is interesting about this national data is that 12 states had Latino population of more than 1 million in 2019.
Excuse me, Claudia, are you sharing your screen? I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, really? Okay. So let me, yes, I am supposed to do that. So thank you for that. Let me see. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you, Dan. So here, so big picture, right? 30,000 foot view. So again, I was in the point that in 2019, 4 additional states increased their populations to 1 million of Latinos. And one of those states was North Carolina. Again, a huge change, a huge shift in demographics. The median age of US Hispanics is 30 at the national level. So I think this is a big picture of what's happening in the country with data and demographics about Latinos, and I'm gonna go closer to our home. So here is North Carolina, and this is the first time in history that Latinos have this number of the Latino population is this 1.0, it's about 1,400,000 residents that are Latinos. And this is huge. This population change, as I mentioned, it changed everything that we do in our systems, affected K through 12, affected every aspect of our economy and every aspect of our society. So again, more data related to North Carolina. Nearly 6 of every 10 Hispanics in North Carolina are US-born citizens. When I was preparing for this presentation, this was a very important point for me, because this is changing more of the misconception that we have in the state about Latinos, that most of them are from somewhere who were not born here. And that is not the case since 2010. we talked about this earlier. And over the last decade, North Carolina's Latino population has grown by 26%. That is huge. Today, almost 20% of the K-12 population in North Carolina is Latino. In the group that was earlier, someone shared that in their system, K-12 is almost 20% of students in K-12 are Latinos. This is interesting too. The median age of Latinos in North Carolina is 25 compared to 44 for white non-Hispanics. That means that the fertility rate of the Latino population is huge. So families are going to continue growing here in North Carolina. And the Latino population has a massive impact in North Carolina's more rural counties. You can, some of you are in some of those areas where the Latino population has increased by 20% in some cases. And as we probably know, Mecklenburg County and Wake County account for 25% of this Latino population in the state. So who are Latinos? Who are the Latinos who live in the state? First of all, it's a population that is very diverse. And I think when we are thinking about enrollments, it's important that, or how to enroll Latinos, it's important to be cognizant that this is a population that is not monolithic. It's very diverse. We learned earlier in other presentations that the majority of Latinos in North Carolina are Mexican Americans. Then the second group are Puerto Ricans, Salvadorians, and Hondurans, and others. Others, including people from South America and all parts of Latin America. So that makes this group very diverse. And also many of these Latinos living in North Carolina, remember, 61% of them are native born. Some of those residents might come from different states, and they might not speak English at all. These are individuals that probably are third, fourth generation Latinos in the country, which is a very different type of student or potential student than the student who is first generation, who is an immigrant, for example, or is a second generation student whose parents are immigrants. So we need to be cognizant of those differences when thinking about recruitment and thinking about student support individuals' needs in the state. More of the, again, very diverse from the places their families immigrated from. But there are some common denominators in the Latino community. And I am part of the community, obviously, and I definitely agree that there are some values that are common denominators. One is family. Latino families are all about the family, and not just your close family, extended family. And when we're thinking about recruiting Latinos, that is an aspect that you need to keep into consideration when thinking about how to reach out to those K-12 students. How can you involve the family, the whole family in this process? Because families are the base of this population. Another thing that Latinos share also is that they have a strong attachment to their churches as the primary community institutions. So faith leaders are important to Latino families. They listen to them, and also they, as I mentioned, they nurture the family within the community, the faith community they participate in. Food, folklore, all those traditions are so important to Latinos. And when I think about those aspects of the Latino community, and think about North Carolina as the place that we call home, there are so many common denominators to how North Carolina culture is also structured. Church, the community of faith is so strong in North Carolina, just like Latinos are. So it's kind of like intersects just perfectly when the Latino Americans North Carolinians are part of this community. I mean, the children that had born here, for example, you know, they are identified with the culture of North Carolina. Of course, they kind of live into two cultures, right? But when you think about it, there are so many points of intersection of both cultures. And they call North Carolina home. They don't know more other homes besides where they were growing up, and here it is, North Carolina. So, oh, I have two screens. So here is a question for you. So we talk a lot about data and how this number of students and number of families coming to our state, our institutions have changed. How is this affecting your campus? So I pose a question for you. How has your campus adapted to the rapid changes in demographics in your community? And I'm just gonna, I was gonna break into groups, but I am afraid that time is running fast. So if somebody wants to just share or write on the chat about how has your campus adapted to the rapid changes in demographics in your community, that would be great. You could unmute and just participate right now if you would like, or again, just go to the chat and share. And looking at the chat. I'm sorry, am I still sharing the screen?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Well, great. So think about that. How have your communities been changed and adapted to respond to this demographic change? So now let's talk about attainment, academic attainment of Latino students, which is one of those things that you were talking about earlier of why it's important to you recruiting Latinos at your community colleges. You know, we learned that once they move from K through 12 to our post-secondary education institutions, Latinos tend to stay and retain and graduate. But to get in there can be a challenge, right? We also learned earlier that the dropout rate for Latinos has unfortunately increased in the last couple of years in North Carolina. So how we can make that bridge is definitely important. And here again, some numbers and some data that is important for you to think about when creating programs that actually address these needs. In North Carolina, 16% of Hispanics adults were enrolled in higher education compared to 25% of white non-Hispanics. So there is a gap, an equity gap there. At four-year institutions, Hispanic graduation rate was 5 percentage points lower than their white non-Hispanic peers in North Carolina. This is, you know, and again, the data shows that, which is good news for us, community college. At two-year institutions, Hispanic graduation rate was 2 percentage points lower than what their white non-Hispanic peers in North Carolina. You know, it's good news compared to their attainment when compared to four-year institutions. But there is plenty to do there, plenty. In North Carolina, 22% of Hispanic adults had earned an associate degree or higher compared to 46% of white non-Hispanic adults. This statistic is alarming. So, you know, that's where you see those equity gaps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And here, 40% don't have high school diploma or equivalent. 40% of the adults in North Carolina do not have a high school diploma or equivalent. That means that in many homes, those children, those native-born Latinos, their parents do not have the skills to help them through the K through 12 system. So think about this. Think about the adult population that we are talking about that. And I am emphasizing that because because in my area of expertise, which is adult education and college and career readiness, we think about this a lot. What can we do for those adults in North Carolina that need to get a credential and complete their high school equivalency? And here we are, 2020. We are in the middle of a pandemic. You know, it's just the perfect storm. I mean, it's COVID-19 pandemic, unemployment, and civil unrest. All of that happened in the last 5-6 months, and it's happening really fast, really quickly, and it's affecting Blacks and Hispanics more than others. This pandemic has shown, you know, those inequalities that exist before the pandemic are being exposed in ways that, I mean, we could not imagine 6 months, 7 months, a year ago. I mean, we knew those gaps, those equity gaps were there, but the pandemic just macro expand those inequalities. And one of the areas where it's being devastating is in the digital divide that we are experiencing in our communities. You know, Latinos and, you know, minorities especially are having less access to devices and have the knowledge and the understanding of how to navigate different platforms where everything, education for K-12 students is being fully delivered into these distance learning methods. So here in the system office, we are very cognizant of those equity gaps, and we are really working hard to create alternatives where we can first try to improve the digital literacy skills of North Carolina or North Carolinians, including Latino students, of course. In terms of rates of infection, just in Mecklenburg County, 55% of the infections are in the Latino population, and only 14% of the population in Mecklenburg County, for example, is Latino. So the disparity is huge. There are so many reasons why it is that, but the fact is that this pandemic has hit Latinos and minorities in ways that it's hard to imagine. I mean, I put this image there because it gets as hard as rock climbing the Capitan without training. So imagine how you feel in that point of the mountain when you don't have the skills to be able to navigate this very difficult time. So I thought it was important that we talk about the moment that we're living, because those are the students that you are hoping to recruit are living the pandemic in different ways that most Americans are. But these are all kind of like hard news to hear, difficult statistics to kind of digest. But I'm very hopeful that we're gonna see more Latinos, and we're talking more about why it's so important to bring Latinos to our community colleges, to provide them opportunities for transitioning to post-secondary education or high quality credential. Because of the pandemic and because of the social unrest that we're living in our country, this has been a topic that comes over and over and over again. Every day we're talking about the inequalities in education that we're having, where not all students have the same possibilities. So for me, this is in a way exciting, because we're talking about, you know, real solutions and real opportunities for this community to succeed. So let's talk about the opportunities now. What is the data telling us? Well, the data is telling us that we have a lot of work to do. And here in the community college, we have about 12% of students registered in the community college are Latinos. We learned that earlier in the presentation before. But how is that Latinos are representing that 12%? Well, only 2% of Latino students were enrolled in multiple academic levels. And what are those academic levels? Again, curriculum, continuing education, and basic skills, right? Latinos represent the largest share of basic skill students at 38%, but lack in curriculum and workforce and continuing education. Basic skills is college and career readiness. 30% of the students enrolled in those programs for college and career readiness are Latinos. Latinos are underrepresented in dual enrollment programs. Those are the programs where the K-12 system partners with the community college, and for students, of course, to get credit while they are in high school. That's an excellent program, but the Latino community needs to be more integrated into those programs. So to me, this is from all the things that we have talked about this morning, I'd like you to pay really good attention to this chart. So this is the enrollment distribution by division fall 2019. I did not have the data for fall 2020, but this is recent, it's fall 2019. So again, remember, 12% of the students in North Carolina Community College system are Latinos. Now, here is the distribution of those Latinos in the different divisions of the college. So continuing education, only about 7% of Latinos, of Latino students are enrolled in those programs. In basic skills or college and career readiness, it goes about 38%. In curriculum, only about 11%. So what do we do in college and career readiness? In college and career readiness, you probably not, but I wanted to remind you that what we do is to prepare students for college and career. How do we prepare the students? And I'm going to talk about more about the Latino community. For some of them, we provide them with English language acquisition courses so they can improve their language skills. We provide them with family literacy skills. We provide them with the skills they need in the preparation they need to attain the high school equivalency diploma. Remember, 40% of adults in North Carolina do not have a high school diploma. So we do a lot of work with Latinos in basic skills. And we know how to work with this population, and we know how to recruit them, and we know how to retain them in our programs as well. So when I talk about strategies, these are some of the strategies that I think are important for you to consider. Some of these strategies are really basic, but and some can be a little bit more complicated, but even the basic ones make a huge impact in your community. So one of the strategies I want to suggest to you is to start developing programs in partnership with curriculum, continuing education, and basic skills to transition in those adult learners from the college and career readiness into post-secondary degree or high-quality credential. The Latino students are already enrolled in your programs. They are there. They are part of the data, but they are in basic skills. And what happens in basic skills is that they are getting preparation in college and career ready, but they need to be transitioning into programs that provide them a credential or a training where they can find jobs, have sustainable wages so they can support their families. Work as a team within your campus community. That sounds very simple. Very, but it's so important to create those partnerships at your community college. If you work in college and career readiness, talk to your program chairs in curriculum, talk to program directors at continuing education. So you start those conversations, meet soon with them, and talk about how can we transfer in this population of Latinos that we already have in our college into programs that provide a credential in transitioning or some credits for these students to continue their education. I mean, simple is a simple strategy. It's hard to do sometimes. Diversify your college faculty, staff, and administration. That is an important point. We know that, when students can relate to some of those professors or people in leadership, they feel more comfortable, they feel more welcome. And also those positions of the leadership will also have in mind the Latino or the population they represent as a whole. So I encourage you to think about your hiring practices. Focus on customer service relationships. That is so important. When I was at Appalachian State University, we moved the enrollment of adult students for about 18% in 1 year. 18% increase in enrollment of adult population in a college. That I still can believe that we did that. But we did with different reasons, but one of them was to focus so much in the customer service. A lot of times we in higher education don't think in terms of customer service. It's important to make that shift, to think about our students as customers and that we want to keep. When businesses, when they think about their customers, they know about what their habits are, what their data is, who are they, what are their needs, what are their desires. Business think that way. We in higher education need to start thinking that way and know that Latino students want to come to college. Latino families want their kids to go to college. That is something that we must know. So if there is the desire of the population to go to college, what is in between? What is not happening there to go to use our products, our instruction, our credentialing? So customer service relationships makes a great difference. Learn from other institutions. There are institutions across the country and across the world that have done excellent work in recruiting Latinos or minorities into your programs. Provide clear program maps explaining what courses students need to graduate and which credits can transfer to other institutions. We all know that advising students can be challenging and counseling them through their career map can be challenging, but if we have a specific steps and maps to roadmaps to graduation, that will help students to actually graduate. Align data with practice and leadership. Use the data you learned today and think about how can you make some changes in your own institution. And partner with community college organizations in K-12. Sometimes your community college might not have the services this population needs or needs at the moment, and community-based organizations outside your college might be able to provide those services. So think about that. And digital marketing, social media, and if you can have the resources to recruit the students for in a digital marketing venue, that is not only good for Latinos, it's good for all students. So again, I want to really focus in these strategies today, and we only have 5 minutes. So think about, I told you, think about this, think about these statistics. So again, this is the strategy that I would like for you to take home today. Moving students from college and career readiness to integrated then to curriculum and continuing education. Why is this important? Well, or how do we do that? It's a perfect, it's a perfect framework in a perfect model that has worked in other parts of the country, where students, while they are preparing for their high school equivalency, get either their GED test or HiSET, they are also getting a preparation for workforce, right? So they are learning about digital literacy, for example. They are learning about soft skills at work. And at the same time, all of this happening at the same time, they are also receiving workforce training, either from curriculum, CTE, for example, or a continuing education. So again, remember what I was talking about earlier regarding work as a group, work with your team, get to know people at your college. You need to have those relationships in order to create programs like that, where college and career readiness students are while they are working on their college and career ready, they are also getting the workforce preparation and the workforce training they need in order to get that post-secondary credential or training. Why is this good? Why is this kind of approach a positive approach? These are all the benefits that if you can connect all those areas together, students will graduate from high school. They will get their high school equivalency credential. They will get an industry recognized credential. They will have more employment opportunities. They will be able to maybe later transfer credit to other institutions if they decide to move their career to, let's say, a 4-year institution. And for some programs, not for CE, of course, and they can have stackable college credentials. This is what we want, right? This is why it's important to bring North Carolina and Latinos to the community college to get that post-secondary credential so they can become more active in our economic and workforce development for the state. It's so important, especially now that we are going through a pandemic, and this population will need more than ever the support in order to get those skills that they can do and they can get so that we're ready for post-pandemic recovery. I don't know if we have time, but maybe we do. The other point I wanted to make was regarding the relationships that you can build with community-based organizations. So in Charlotte, am I showing the screen?
Yeah, we can see it. Can't hear it.
Okay, so in Charlotte, back in 2001, I co-founded an organization that basically worked with Latino families to provide them with information about the college-going process. And through this organization, we were able to, in 2001, this is almost 20 years ago, we were able to work with parents and K-12 students to start talking about college. And again, at that time and today, Latino families want their children to succeed and want their kids to go to college. These college fairs were extremely successful. We have together worked with the community college and the K-12 system, and we wrote community colleges and community-based organizations and 4-year institutions, not only from North Carolina, but from outside, to talk to these students about the opportunities they have. I mean, college fairs are not a new concept. What it makes this different is that they were organized in the context that support the Latino families. So parents, as you can see in these images, it was parents there with these students, both of them learning in so many cases what was the process to go to college, because that parent might not have gone to college in their country. Remember, most of our students, most of the population here in North Carolina are second generation, meaning their parents are immigrants. So probably they did not know how the school system works here. So partnering with this community-based organization is very powerful. In preparation for this presentation, I interviewed a family. I can remember in which slide they were, but they were here in one of these slideshows. And we talk about, tell me more about what happened during that fair they attended in 2007. And I was really happy to hear that her kid, this is a family in Charlotte. Her name is Nora, the student's name is Laura. And Laura went to University of Chapel Hill, finished her undergrad, and now she's enrolled in in Wake Forest, working towards her MBA. So, those things work. When and that parent didn't know about the college process, the college going process here in the States. And events like this really make a difference for our community. So I think we are out of time almost, and I want to know if you have any questions. Here is a picture of, it's not my backyard, but of a backyard. And the idea of this is for you to think about your Latino students are in your colleges. They are in your backyard. So how can you move them from college and career readiness programs to post-secondary credential into curriculum or CE is what I want to encourage you to think about when you come back to your communities and campuses. And we have just a few minutes, I guess, Matt.
Right.
Any questions at this point?